Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
My boyfriend had been transferred to the office I was working in from another city, and that is how we met each other. I was in a senior post and could not get that frank with him in the office, but I got an idea that he was a cheerful and humorous person. We interacted a few times at formal dinners, and this made me fall for him. I asked him his number bluntly one day, and that is how we started talking. I had already fallen for him, and it could be said that I was looking for a relationship, but I did not make it clear as I wanted to know what he thought of me first. We started hanging out, and I became even more impressed by him. This allowed us to get to know each other better, and only a few weeks later, he asked me out for a date. I instantly said yes, and our first date was the best day of my life. We had been dating for 2 months, I think, when I suggested that he should move in with me, as we would maintain a distance in the office, and I craved to be around him. We moved in together, and I must say that we felt like we were the best and the most compatible couple in the world. He was such a decent and caring man who would get worried about the silliest things, and it just made him cuter. We made sure to make each other feel special all the time and would do anything to make the other happy. My family consisted of my mom and a younger brother who lived in the same city, while his parents lived in his hometown. He had met my family several times, and my family loved him as much as I did. As his parents lived miles away, I never got a chance to see them, but they knew that their son was dating and the girl was from his office. My boyfriend had told me that his parents were strict and protective, so it was not going to be easy for me to impress them. I told him that I had genuine feelings for him and respected his family no matter what sort of people they were. My boyfriend proposed to me on my birthday, and how could I say no? I promptly said yes and hugged him with all my might. He told me that he wanted to marry me in 2 months, and I told him that I was absolutely ready. He had to see his parents and told them about us getting married, so he left for his hometown on the weekend. When my boyfriend came back, he looked worried and told me that his family was not convinced at all. He said that his parents were furious because he had not involved them or discussed with them before proposing to me. I told him that we could go and convince them, as maybe they would like me if they got to know me. My boyfriend called his parents and told them that I wanted to see them, to which his mom replied that she had no desire to see me and he could do whatever suited him. My boyfriend once again went to see his parents to try to get their approval, but they did not even talk to him properly. He said that they were not being valued and their son had been hypnotized because he had never taken his decisions on his own. My boyfriend returned and told me that he did not care about what his parents wanted as he was sure of his choice. He told me that we were going to get married and we never needed his parents' approval. We started wedding preparations, but my mom was concerned and said that my in-laws could create problems later in my life. I told her that I trusted my boyfriend and that if he was taking a stand, I should support him instead of doubting him. We got married, and the event was a small, intimate one and included our close friends and my family only. I was the happiest bride, and I bet my husband felt like the luckiest groom. We planned that we would announce our wedding to my husband's parents after we returned from our honeymoon. We left for our honeymoon after a week and had the best time together. As we returned, my mom told us that we had to announce our marriage to my husband's family, as the delay would only worsen the situation. My boyfriend called his parents and told them that he had got married a couple of weeks ago and could not wait to see them. They told him that as he had chosen another family over them, that he could stay with that family as they were never going to accept him as their son. This worried my husband so much, and his parents are still not responding to his calls. My in-laws responded to my husband's call a week later and still talked rudely. My husband told them that he was now old enough to make decisions regarding his life and did not need their support or approval all the time. His parents said that if he kept on acting like that they would abandon him and would never let him see them again. They told him that they had responded by inviting us to their home. My husband was glad that at least his parents were ready to see us. I'm not getting a positive vibe from this situation. His parents were cursing me a few days before and even said that I had hypnotized their son. And now they were inviting us to their home? I asked my husband what if they had planned something against us, to which he replied that I was overthinking and making up situations in my mind because I was mentally exhausted. My mom also told me that they were just trying to make up with their son as they could not lose their only child. We reached my mother-in-law's house around evening and they had arranged a lavish dinner. They greeted us warmly and told me that I was beautiful and they were glad to see me. I was relieved that at least they had accepted us as a couple, and I was sure that they were going to like me once they got to know me. I was also convinced that they were just being protective of their son. My mother-in-law started asking me about my family, and as I told her that I had a mom and a brother in my family, she asked if my dad had died. I told her that my parents had separated long ago. She would not leave the topic and went on to ask the reason for their separation. I told her that my dad had trust issues and doubted my mom, so my mom decided to part ways. She very bluntly said that if my dad had doubted her, there must be something. I ignored her remark, but she went on and said that women with such character ruin families. I lost my cool and I yelled at her, how dare she say that? My husband tried to calm me down and I told him that I wanted a divorce right away. We left immediately and now I am at my place. I have locked myself in my room since we returned because I cannot even put in words how much hurt I am right now. My husband had called my mom to talk to me and she was the one who convinced me to open the door. You might think that I had overreacted, but I know how my mom had dealt with her toxic relationship with my dad and how she worked hard to raise me and my brother. I could not bear a single word against her. My mom told me that I was being hyper and should not worry about someone who doesn't even matter. She told me that it was my husband who mattered and he was already by my side. When my mom left, my husband told me that he was embarrassed and sorry for the way his mom had talked about my mom. He told me that I should have not asked for divorce right there as it hurt him. He said that I could not punish him for something his parents had done. My husband also assured me that he would not talk to his parents until they apologized to me. A week later, my mother-in-law called my husband and told him that she wanted to see him. My husband said that he was not going to see her until she apologized to me, and my mother-in-law lost her senses and told my husband that he was the worst son, as he was disrespecting his parents who had sacrificed their whole life for his future. My husband told her that they still were not entitled to control his life or give him directions. He went on and said that if they did not apologize to me, they would lose their son. My husband hung up after that and did not respond to their calls and texts after that. His mom kept on texting him and telling him that he could not see the reality and that I was trying to take him away from his family. I took my husband's phone and called my mother-in-law. She promptly picked up the call and I told her that if she did not stop being a bitch, I would show her who was better at it. She did not say anything but kept on texting my husband so that he could see what sort of a person I was. A few days later, my father-in-law called my husband and told him that he was sorry and never wanted to create such a mess, but my mother-in-law was not ready to accept me at any cost. He told my husband that he was embarrassed the way my mother-in-law had commented on my mom and wished he could do something at that time. My husband told him that he understood him and he had no issues with him. My father-in-law asked my husband if he could see him, and my husband told him that he would visit on a weekend. My husband went to see his dad, and everything was good until my mother-in-law appeared and told my husband that she would only accept me on one condition, and that was if I would never see my mom again because she was a characterless woman and could have a bad impact on our relationship. This enraged my husband, and he told her that if she kept on being that mean, he would surely stop seeing her. My husband warned her that if she would not mind her own business, she would be left alone. NTA, taking a stand for your mom and not letting anyone belittle her at any cost, is justified and was the best a daughter would do. I was amazed to see that OP did not even care about her marriage just because someone had insulted her mom. She displayed a strong character and dealt with the situation bravely. OP's husband also played a great role by standing by her side. NTA, OP's mother-in-law, was a next-level a-hole who was not only obsessed with her son, but was also self-obsessed. She just could not see any other woman in her son's life and thought that she owned his life just because she had raised him. She was such an intolerable woman, and OP did great by dealing with her rudely because she could not understand the language of love and respect.
Next story.
My husband, 37, and I, 34, have been together for 4 years and married for 2. He has a deceased son from his former relationship, and I have a son from my former marriage. He and my son, 16, get along just fine, but they don't spend a lot of time together. My husband said that school, after-school activities, and friends and homework are the reason, but IMO, if he really tries to make time to spend it with my son, then he will find the time. My husband visits his son's grave every week, spends a couple of hours there, and keeps his phone off. Last week was his son's death anniversary. My son had a football match to attend. I told my husband it's the perfect opportunity to get quality time with my son, and he said he already talked to my son, and he said he wanted to go with his friends instead. I told him I could still go with them, but he said that for one, he wants my son to have time with his friends, and 2, he had to visit his son's grave since it was his anniversary. I figured since we already celebrated it at home, then his visit wouldn't be necessary. He got offended and said that his visit was a must, especially on that day. An argument ensued between us, and I ended up telling him that he really should make an effort to spend time with his stepson. He said that his son matters too, and that unless I'd lost a child, I wouldn't understand. This made me feel upset because it seemed like he was implying that I don't love my stepson as my own and was using it against me in the argument. He left and refused to answer my phone calls. My son came home, and after I vented to him, he told me I was in the wrong and that I shouldn't be too hard on his stepdad because he clearly has stuff going on. He said that he thinks I'm overreacting and being paranoid for nothing, and assured me that his stepdad does give him his time and attention, but it doesn't mean that they have to spend every moment together. I don't know. Despite thinking I was hard on him, I just feel that he's not making a real effort to spend more time with my son, and my son only said the above, probably to get me off his back. But I'm not sure. I need outside opinions on this matter. YTA, how can you be so cruel to your husband? It is the anniversary of the death of his son. FFS, let him have this at least. He is grieving like a parent should. Your son seems more mature than you are in this situation. If your son feels neglected by his stepdad, he would have made you aware. Just stop if you don't want to lose him. You want your husband and son to spend more time together, but both of them get along and say that they spend enough time together. If your son is old, you can vent to him. He's old enough to say he wants to be with his friends. Forcing your husband to go with him when he wants to be with his friends are unfair to both of them. YTA, don't try to force relationships. It will never work. Also, don't say you celebrated the anniversary of your husband's son's death, and that the week after the anniversary is the perfect opportunity to get quality time with your son. Doesn't sound quite right.
Next story.
I'm a 20-year-old woman, and I was recently asked by my sister-in-law, who's 35, to dye my hair back to a natural color because my niece, 14-year-old girl, has taken a liking to my hair and wants to dye it. I have bright blue hair, and I love my hair. I've always been drawn to the alternative style and never saw an issue in this till recently. My niece and I are close, probably because I'm an adult a little closer to her age. And she has taken an interest in how I dress. I figure it's just her looking up to me, and while trying to figure herself out, has taken some inspiration from me, and I think this is so sweet. But sadly, her mother seems to have a different opinion. My niece recently started to ask to get some streaks in her hair, and I guess the constant attempt at convincing her parents has annoyed her mother. And my niece's color of choice is the same shade of blue as me, which is why my sister in law is now targeting me. She one day messaged me asking me to tone down my look because it was influencing her daughter, and she's worried people will think that she's a degenerate like many of the kids in our generation. Now, obviously, I took this as an insult because if having colorful hair means you're a degenerate, that's obviously what my sister in law thinks of me. I politely told her that I wasn't comfortable changing my appearance because she wanted me to, and then tried to get her to understand why my niece might want to change and that she is trying to become her own person. Well, my sister in law was quite mad that I wasn't going to change. According to my husband, she's always had issues with being told no, and started telling me that as an adult in her child's life, I should want what's best for her child, and I'm a terrible aunt and role model if I'm going to let people judge her child because she wants to copy her punkish looking aunt. I got highly offended. I love my niece, blood or not. And I would like to think I'm a good role model. I mean, I try my hardest to be someone that she can look up to and come to when she needs help, but apparently my blue hair makes me a bad aunt. I told my sister in law that my job was not to necessarily be a role model and to just be a loving support system, and instead of attacking me, that she should talk to her daughter about what she really wants. My sister in law then got more mad and said my niece wouldn't be allowed to come over as often until I stopped dressing like a degenerate. I'm heartbroken that my niece can't come over as often now, but I don't want to change who I am. My husband supports me, but my mother in law says I'm being an a-hole. NTA. Ah, yes, nothing convinces a teenage girl to conform like absolutely refusing to indulge even the smallest expression of individuality. Keep doing you, OP. I have a feeling there's more to her looking to you as an adult in her life than just the lessened age gap. NTA, even if you change your hair color, I'll bet there are kids at school that your niece sees every day who have wild hair colors. These days, everyone seems to be coloring their hair, non natural colors. I think they look great. I know a 70-plus-year-old woman who has purple and blue streaks in her hair, and she lectures at church on Sundays too. Hair color is less permanent than piercings too. Your sister in law is just being silly if she thinks dyeing your hair will change anything.